Hey guys, tonight we're going to drift back, way back, to a time before emails, before traffic, before alarm clocks, and tragically, before coffee. Dim the lights, get comfortable, maybe pull the blanket up just a little higher, because we are heading into the deep, quiet past, a place of smoke-filled caves, slow sunsets over Ice Age plains, and people who did not have a single calendar notification to ruin their mood. Tonight's gentle question is this: what did cavemen actually do all day? Not the dramatic movie version, not the constant spear throwing and mammoth chasing, just the real daily rhythm, the boring bits, the waiting around, the awkward social dynamics of living in a cave with 12 relatives and exactly 0 personal space. And as we glide through this prehistoric day, we'll lean on what we know from archaeology and paleoanthropology, from the long stretches of the Paleolithic, from people like the Neanderthals of Europe and the early Homo sapiens who slowly spread across the world. Nothing flashy, just the slow, steady business of survival. So let's imagine it. The sun rises slowly over a Paleolithic landscape. Maybe we're in what is now southern France, maybe somewhere in what will one day be Kenya. The specifics shift, but the pattern is similar. A small band of hunter-gatherers wakes up. There is no alarm, just light, and probably someone snoring. The group might be 20 to 30 people, a mix of adults, teenagers, children, and a few elders. Everyone knows everyone, because, well, there's no one else. And the first thing they do each day is not hunt a mammoth. They check the fire. Fire is everything: warmth, light, protection, cooked food. And maintaining it is basically a full-time background job. Someone probably slept near it. Someone else now pokes at the embers, blows gently, adds dry wood. If the fire went out overnight, that's a problem. Not a dramatic, cinematic problem, just an exhausting one, because now someone has to spark it again, and fire starting without matches is not exactly a 5-second task. So step 1 of the caveman daily routine: don't lose the fire. Once that's handled, the group begins to stir. Children wake up first, because children have always woken up too early. That part of human history has never changed. They shuffle around, they poke at things, they ask questions, they probably try to touch the fire and are gently redirected. Adults stretch, rub their eyes, maybe step outside the cave or shelter to check the weather. Weather matters a lot when your walls are stone and animal hide. Now, here's where modern assumptions start to fall apart. Cavemen were not constantly busy. In fact, hunter-gatherer societies studied in more recent times often spend only a few hours a day on food-gathering tasks. The rest of the time, resting, talking, repairing tools, watching the horizon, existing. So no, they weren't sprinting around from dawn to dusk like CrossFit enthusiasts with spears. Let's float gently into the morning tasks. A small group of adults prepares to gather plant foods. This likely includes women, though not exclusively. Gender roles probably existed, but they weren't as rigid as some older textbooks once suggested. They carry woven baskets or simple containers, maybe slung over shoulders. They head toward known patches of edible plants, berries, roots, nuts, tubers. They know the landscape intimately, which plants are safe, which are poisonous, which taste terrible but won't kill you. A valuable skill set, really. Meanwhile, a few adults, often men, though again not always, may prepare for a hunting trip. But hunting does not happen every day. Large game hunting is risky and energy intensive. You don't just wake up and casually wrestle a mammoth before breakfast. That's a once-in-a-while event. More common would be smaller game: rabbits, birds, maybe deer if luck and planning align. So a hunting party forms. They check their spears, maybe stone-tipped, carefully crafted. They talk quietly, not about sports scores, but about tracks seen yesterday, about where herds were moving. There is planning involved, and patience. Back at the cave or camp, not everyone leaves. Some adults stay with the children. Some elders remain near the fire.
Elders, by the way, were incredibly valuable, not because they could run fast, but because they remembered things. They remembered which valleys flooded, which winters were harsh, which plants ripened early. Oral history was survival. So while younger adults move across the landscape, elders might sit, slowly shaping stone tools, flaking bits of flint with careful strikes. Tap, turn, tap again. Stone tool production is not dramatic. It's repetitive, focused, almost meditative. And children watch. They imitate, pick up smaller stones, try to copy the motions, probably fail, try again. Learning in the Paleolithic is constant and hands-on. No classroom, no worksheets, just observation and practice. Now let's drift toward midday. If the gathering party is successful, they return with baskets partly filled, not overflowing, just enough. Maybe some wild carrots, some handfuls of berries, maybe edible leaves. They sit in small groups, cleaning, sorting, peeling roots with stone blades. Conversations happen, quiet ones, about who slipped in the mud, about which child wandered too far, about the tracks someone thought they saw near the river. There's laughter sometimes, but not loud, roaring sitcom laughter, more like soft exhalations, shared glances. If the hunting party returns empty-handed, that's normal. Most hunts fail. No dramatic collapse, just a nod, a shrug, maybe tomorrow. If they succeed, though, the camp shifts. A deer laid near the fire, carefully butchered, nothing wasted, meat sliced, bones cracked for marrow, organs cooked quickly. Cooking is slow and smoky. The smell spreads. Everyone gathers closer.
And here's something important. Food is shared. In small hunter-gatherer bands, hoarding doesn't work. If you try to keep all the meat for yourself, you won't last long socially. And social isolation is dangerous in a world with no police and many predators. So even the best hunter eats alongside everyone else. Let's pause here for a moment and consider downtime. Because, yes, cavemen had downtime. After eating, people rest, lie back against cave walls, stare at the ceiling, watch smoke curl upward. Some may groom each other, picking debris from hair, checking for parasites. It sounds unglamorous, it is, but it's also bonding. Humans evolved as deeply social creatures. Conversation, touch, shared space, these were daily needs. Children play nearby, and play looks surprisingly familiar, chasing each other, throwing small sticks, pretending to hunt tiny imaginary mammoths, because of course they are. Through play, they practice adult skills, running, throwing, cooperation. Teenagers might wander a bit farther from camp, testing independence, showing off. Every generation has one. As afternoon light shifts, more practical tasks resume. Tool repair, clothing maintenance, animal hides stretched and scraped. This is hard, physical work, but again, it's steady, rhythmic, not frantic. Hides must be cleaned properly or they rot, and nobody wants a rotting jacket. Someone might experiment with pigments, charcoal, ochre, mixing with fat to create simple paints. And yes, sometimes they paint. Cave art did not happen every day, but occasionally someone feels compelled to leave a mark, a bison shape, a handprint, not for tourists, not for likes, just because humans have always had an urge to create. As the sun lowers, attention shifts again. Predators become more active at dusk, so the group tightens together. Fire is built up stronger, more wood added. Dinner, if any remains, is reheated, or more plants are roasted. The light fades. And this is when stories begin. We don't have recordings, obviously, but storytelling almost certainly existed. Humans are narrative creatures. Someone describes a hunt from years ago, maybe exaggerates slightly.
Someone else corrects them gently or not so gently. Children listen wide-eyed. Stories carry knowledge about dangerous places, about ancestors, about strange events in the sky. And eventually, one by one, people lie down. Sleep is communal, close together for warmth, for safety, for comfort. The fire glows low. Outside, the Ice Age wind moves across grasslands, or rain taps lightly on stone. And that was a day. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just steady, focused on food, warmth, tools, and relationships, day after day. Of course, not every day was calm. There were injuries, illness, cold winters, scarcity. But most days, though, most days were about small tasks and quiet survival. And tomorrow they will wake again. Check the fire, stretch, look at the sky, and begin the slow, familiar rhythm once more. So as you settle deeper into your pillow tonight, consider this. For most of human history, a successful day meant simply staying warm, finding food, and not annoying your small band of relatives too much, which, honestly, is still a pretty good life strategy. Let's gently drift onward next time, perhaps into what they wore, how they fell in love, or how they dealt with the one guy in the cave who absolutely insisted he could tame a wolf. But for now, rest. The fire is still glowing.
All right, let's ease back in. The fire is still glowing. The night air is cold, but not unkind. You're tucked somewhere between a cousin and that one guy who snoozes like a startled mammoth. Tonight, we continue. Because surviving the Ice Age was not just about food and fire. It was also about clothing, relationships, and the delicate art of not completely losing your mind while living in a cave with 20 other humans. So, let's start with fashion. Now, when we say caveman clothing, people often imagine a single ragged fur thrown over one shoulder. Very dramatic, very inaccurate. In reality, Paleolithic clothing had to be practical, especially during colder periods. Early humans, including Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, lived through glacial cycles. That means serious cold. Animal hides were carefully prepared, and this was not glamorous work. First, the hide had to be skinned properly. Then the hide had to be scraped clean of fat and tissue, then stretched, sometimes smoked, sometimes treated with animal brains to soften it. Yes, brains, because brain tissue contains natural emulsifiers that help preserve and soften leather. Prehistoric skincare routine? Surprisingly advanced. Once softened, hides could be cut and shaped. Bone needles, and yes, archaeologists have found them, were used for stitching. That means fitted clothing, pants, tunic-like garments, possibly even layered outfits. So no, they were not just shivering dramatically in loosely draped pelts. In colder regions, clothing likely included boots lined with fur, gloves, hoods, because frostbite is not a personality trait anyone wants. And clothing required maintenance. Holes were patched, seams restitched, wet garments dried near the fire. This was regular work, not exciting, but absolutely necessary. Now, let's drift gently from fashion to feelings. Because yes, cavemen fell in love, or at least they formed pair bonds. Long-term relationships likely existed, though they varied by group. Hunter-gatherer societies today show a mix of monogamy, flexible partnerships, and strong social networks. Marriage as a formal ceremony, probably not in the modern sense, but alliances between families, absolutely. Choosing a partner in a small band is tricky. There aren't many options, and genetic diversity matters.
So groups often exchanged members with neighboring bands, which means sometimes someone new arrives. Imagine that moment. A new person walks into camp, different face, slightly different accent, maybe better at spear throwing. Suddenly, everyone is paying attention. Teenagers pretend not to stare. Adults quietly evaluate. Elders observe everything. Partnerships might form gradually. Shared tasks, walking together during gathering trips, sitting near each other by the fire. No dating apps, just proximity and survival. And relationships, of course, were not always smooth. Living in close quarters means tension, jealousy, irritation. There is always that one person who forgets to replace the firewood, the one who takes slightly more than their share of roasted tubers, the one who insists their flint-knapping technique is superior.
Language conflict in small bands had to be handled carefully. Violence within the group is dangerous, so social pressure likely played a big role. Teasing, mild exclusion, direct but calm confrontation. And if someone repeatedly caused problems, they might be asked to leave, which, in the Paleolithic, is basically the harshest consequence possible. Because alone in the Ice Age is not romantic. It is not character building. It is extremely inconvenient. Now, let's talk about children. Children were everywhere. Hunter-gatherer societies tend to have high child mortality, yes, but also strong communal care. Kids were not raised by two exhausted parents alone. The entire group participated. An aunt might carry a baby while the mother gathers food. An older sibling might entertain toddlers with sticks and pebbles. An elder might tell stories while watching over the youngest. Play was constant. Small children practiced throwing by aiming at tree trunks. They played pretend hunts. They copied adult gestures. They learned which plants were safe by watching, not by reading warning labels. And discipline? Probably mild, immediate, practical. If a child wandered too far, someone grabbed them gently but firmly. If they played too close to the fire, a sharp warning. Survival lessons were non-negotiable. Now let's float gently into adolescence. Teenagers in the Paleolithic were in many ways very familiar, restless, eager to prove themselves, slightly dramatic. A teenage boy might desperately want to join a hunting party before he's fully ready. A teenage girl might excel at gathering and begin contributing significant food to the group. This stage was about learning adult roles, observing carefully, trying, failing, trying again. And by their late teens, many were already full contributors. No prolonged adolescence, no gap year, just steady integration into adult life. Now, let's consider leisure. Yes, leisure. We often assume prehistoric life was non-stop labor, but evidence suggests otherwise. Once basic needs were met, people rested. They talked, they sang. Rhythm likely existed long before written language. Simple drums, clapping, repetitive melodies. Music is portable, and humans love it. There may have been dancing around fires, not choreographed routines, just movement, expression. Body decoration also existed. Beads made from shells, teeth strung into necklaces, ochre used to color skin. Decoration signals identity, belonging, attractiveness. Even in the Ice Age, people cared how they appeared to one another. Now, let's gently address something less cozy: illness. When someone was injured, the group responded. Archaeological evidence shows individuals who survived serious injuries, broken bones that healed. That means others cared for them, brought food, provided protection. Compassion is ancient. but not everyone survived. When someone died, there is evidence of burial practices in some groups. Bodies placed carefully, sometimes with objects, flowers possibly, which suggests grief, ritual, meaning. Even in caves, humans searched for significance. As evening returns once more, the group gathers. Clothing hangs to dry, tools are stacked neatly, children curl against parents. Someone adjusts the fire. A couple sits slightly apart, speaking quietly, perhaps planning, perhaps arguing softly about whose turn it is to gather near the thorn bushes tomorrow. An elder begins a story again, the same one told many times, about a winter long ago, about a hunt that almost failed. And as the firelight flickers across stone walls, shadows move, not frightening, just familiar. This was their world, small, intimate, repetitive. Wake, maintain fire, gather, hunt, repair, eat, rest, connect, sleep. No emails, no deadlines, just the constant, quiet negotiation between humans and their environment. And tomorrow they will do it again, because survival is not dramatic most of the time. It is steady. It is communal. It is, in its own quiet way, deeply human. So, let your breathing slow. Imagine the low crackle of ancient embers, and drift with them into the soft, endless rhythm of a world where the biggest daily concern was whether the berries were ripe, and whether that new person from the neighboring valley might smile back tomorrow. All right, let's ease back into the cave. The fire is low but loyal. The air smells faintly of smoke and roasted roots. Outside, the Ice Age landscape stretches wide and indifferent. And inside, our small band of humans is preparing for one of the more complicated activities of prehistoric life: hunting. Now, contrary to every dramatic documentary voiceover you've ever heard, hunting was not a daily blood-soaked action sequence. It was mostly walking, lots and lots of walking. So let's imagine a hunting morning. A few adults rise earlier than the rest. They check the wind direction first, always the wind, because if you walk straight toward a deer with your scent blowing ahead of you, you are essentially announcing, "Hello, dinner, please run now." They carry spears, carefully balanced, tips sharpened the night before, maybe a stone knife tucked into a hide belt. They don't charge off heroically. They move slowly, quietly, watching the ground. Tracks matter. A fresh hoofprint pressed into damp soil is a tiny miracle of information. How deep is it? How sharp are the edges? Is it from this morning? Last night? Someone kneels, touches the earth, nods slightly, and then the long tracking begins. Hours pass this way. Step, pause, listen, step again. Hunting large animals required coordination. No one wanted to be the person who rushed forward too early and scared off the entire herd. That person would not enjoy the walk back to camp. Eventually, maybe they spot movement, a small group of deer grazing. Now comes the careful positioning. Hunters spread out, not too far apart, just enough to gently guide the animals in a certain direction, ideally toward a narrow space, a slope, a natural bottleneck. This part is tense, but not loud. No dramatic music, just breathing. A signal, a quick rush, spears thrown. And here is the quiet truth. Most of the time, the animals escape. Hunting is hard. Sometimes a spear misses entirely. Sometimes it glances off bone. Sometimes the deer bolts so quickly that everyone just stands there blinking at empty grass.
There might be a sigh, a brief moment of frustration, but no meltdown, because this is normal. On better days, a spear lands well. The animal is injured. The group follows carefully, finishes the job swiftly and respectfully. Then comes the real work, butchering in the field. Meat is heavy, very heavy, so it is often cut into manageable pieces on the spot. Bones cracked for marrow, organs removed. Everything useful is taken. Hide, sinew, bone, nothing wasted. And then the long walk home. Carrying meat over uneven ground is not glamorous. It is sweaty and exhausting. Arms ache, shoulders protest. But there is also quiet satisfaction. Tonight, the group eats well. Back at camp, the returning hunters are noticed immediately. Children run forward. Adults stand up. There is no cheering, but there is visible relief. Meat means security, at least for a little while. The gatherers may have returned earlier with plants and roots. Now everything is combined, a fuller meal. But not every hunting story ends well. Sometimes someone gets injured. A twisted ankle, a deep cut, even a broken bone. And here is where something remarkable appears in the archaeological record. In several prehistoric skeletons, we find healed injuries, severe ones, which means someone survived long enough for bones to knit back together. That means the group cared for them, fed them, protected them, slowed down for them. Compassion is older than civilization. Now, let's drift away from the hunt and into something slightly less strenuous: trapping. Small animals were often caught using simple traps, snares made from cordage, carefully placed along known animal paths. This required patience. A trap might be set in the morning and checked later in the day, sometimes empty, sometimes not. It's quieter than hunting, less dramatic, but often more reliable. Fishing, too, depending on region. Spear and fish in shallow water, or perhaps using woven baskets as simple fish traps. Again, steady, repetitive. Now, imagine an afternoon after a successful hunt. The camp feels lighter. Meat roasts slowly over the fire. Fat drips and sizzles. Smoke rises into the cave ceiling. Children watch closely, hoping for an early taste. Adults slice pieces carefully, sharing evenly. And here comes something subtle but important: gossip. Yes, mammoth-level gossip. Small groups always talk about each other: who hesitated during the hunt, who threw too early, who slipped in the mud in a way that was slightly embarrassing. Not cruelly, but gently. Social cohesion depends on constant feedback. And praise matters too.
A nod to the one who tracked well. A quiet compliment for a clean spear throw. Reputation builds slowly in a small band. Now let's talk about fear. Predators existed. Large cats, wolves, bears. Camps were chosen carefully to reduce risk. Elevated ground, good visibility, strong fire. At night, strange sounds outside the circle of light could freeze everyone for a moment. But humans had an advantage: cooperation. A group with fire and spears is not easy prey. So fear was present, but not constant panic. More like awareness. As evening settles again, tasks resume. Bones from the hunt are cleaned, some set aside for tool making, others cracked thoroughly. Hides are stretched, scraped carefully. The work is repetitive: scrape, turn, scrape again. Conversations drift in and out. Someone recounts an old hunting disaster.
the time a boar charged unexpectedly, the time a spear broke mid-throw. The stories grow slightly more dramatic each year. Of course they do. Children listen with round eyes. Teenagers pretend they would have handled it better. An elder chuckles softly. And then the sky darkens fully. Stars appear. Perhaps someone notices a pattern they've seen 100 times before, points it out again, gives it a name that makes sense only within this small group. Humans have always mapped meaning onto the sky. And inside the cave, warmth deepens. Bellies fuller tonight, muscles tired but satisfied. One by one, people lie down. Some curl close to partners. Some shift until comfortable against the stone. The fire is fed once more. Embers glow red and gold. Outside, the world remains vast and unpredictable. But inside this small circle of light, there is order. Shared food, shared labor, shared stories. Tomorrow might bring another hunt, or just gathering, or rain that keeps everyone inside all day, repairing tools and talking about absolutely nothing important. And that's the quiet beauty of it. Life was not one long heroic saga. It was small successes, small failures, tiny adjustments, walking carefully through a wide, wild world. So let your thoughts slow like those steady footsteps across ancient grass. Let the imagined crackle of fire soften at the edges and drift gently into sleep, knowing that somewhere deep in the past, under a sky blazing with untouched stars, a group of early humans is resting too, dreaming of deer tracks, warm hides, and tomorrow's long, patient walk.